Hey YouTube people, Cameron here with the Seabutters Tech channel, and today we're looking at how to add Klipper to your MK3S Plus. And you may be asking, why are you even talking about this? The MK3S Plus is like 3 generations old, but that's the reason I'm doing this, because what I found is that these machines, which are still really solid machines, albeit a little bit slow, have the capability to be much faster, and they are relatively inexpensive. In fact, if you pay attention to local marketplaces, I picked this one up for $150, which is an absolute steal. Now, it only prints so fast, but Prusa themselves offers an upgrade kit called the MK3.5 upgrade, where they basically replace the electronics board, which gets you, almost double the speed in printing. But what if I told you could have that same boost and a web interface, just like you get on the Prusa one, for only about $25? Now, I'm going to be covering exactly how to install Klipper on a Raspberry Pi Zero 2W in this video on this machine. Now, these Raspberry Pi Zeros can be had for as little as $25, and you do need to solder a couple pins on this, which that's some of the first steps. So let's talk about what you need. First of all, you need the Raspberry Pi Zero 2W. You will need these pin adapters, an 18 to 19 millimeter pin. You'll need an SD card. You'll need the cable that came with your printer, the USB-C cable, and then you'll also need, which may or may not come with your Raspberry Pi kit, depending on which one you get, an OTG cable that goes from micro USB to regular USB, which will let you plug in this cable. We'll use the cable to flash the firmware on the MK3S Plus, and it is entirely reversible, so keep that in mind. However, once we're all done with it, you actually won't need this cable anymore, because the method that I'm going to use in this video is the method that lets you install it directly onto the INZ board right here. So yeah, by the time you're done with all of this, you will have a streamlined Wi-Fi capable machine that looks exactly like this, but prints almost as fast as an MK4. So I'm pretty excited about this. What I have found is, I've known you can do this for a long time. Other people have as well. But some people may find Klipper confusing. So my goal in this entire video is to follow the KISS system, right? Keep it simple. And so I'm going to use a guide that was provided by someone on GitHub, and I'll leave a link in the description below. Username Charmin Ultra. So we'll be using that as a template for getting this done. So one of the things about Klipper is great, but there's a lot of, I don't want to call it gatekeeping, but they want you to do lots of calibration steps to get things right. And you can tune a lot of things to get it printing absolutely fabulously for your hardware. But I feel like in requiring a lot of these steps, it can get very overwhelming, especially for a new user. So my goal with this video is to give you a basic baseline install that you can put on your MK3S Plus. And then if you want to tune it some more, now that you've got some basic parameters, you can go for the moon. You can run all those calibration steps. But sometimes that's hard getting set up for the first time. So there's the order of operations is going to be 1, taking an SD card and flashing it with the Klipper firmware. Really easy. We'll see how to do that. Then you will put the SD card into your Raspberry Pi, and then what we'll do is flash the Klipper firmware using the OTG cable. We'll go through all these steps in detail. And then once you flash the firmware, You can then install the Raspberry Pi directly in the machine. And then once you've done that, we will look at how to configure. There'll be a web interface that Klipper gives you. And once you log into that web interface over your Wi-Fi network, you will be able to configure the printer. And there's a whole bunch of things you can do for settings in there, but I'm going to give you the baseline, including some baseline input shaper settings that you can then tune. Prusa does the same thing. Everyone's going to say, no, you need an accelerometer, you need to do all these things to make sure it's exactly right. Yes. To get it perfect, yes. But these frames are all roughly the same. The hardware is the same. Prusa just put some baseline input shaping values in their MK4, MK3S. So we can do the same thing here and get you going and get some really good prints right off the bat. So let's go through it all. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to flash our SD card with Klipper, which is actually really easy to do. If you're on Windows, you're just going to come to raspberrypi.com/software. You're going to click download for Windows, or if you're on Mac or Debian, you can do it that way. Download it, install it, and that's going to get you this. And what you're going to do is you're going to click device. You're going to choose the Raspberry Pi 02W. When you go to OS, you're going to scroll down and you're going to look for other specific purpose OS. And then you're going to click on that and you're going to look for 3D printing. And then once you're in here, you're going to choose not Octo Klipper Pi. You're going to choose Mainsail OS, which is a Klipper firmware. Click that, choose it. And then you're going to choose your storage. You're going to want to put your SD card in the system, which I have right there. And then you're going to click Next. And you definitely want to do this so we can connect to it on the Wi-Fi after it does the configuration. So once you turn that Raspberry Pi on, you can then immediately get to it in a browser. So if you click it, you're going to click Edit Settings. Now you're going to put a host name in here. Make note of this host name. I'm using a EVA11.local. Set your username and password. I have a password and username I use. Give it your wireless LAN configuration. That doesn't need to be checked. Be sure to give it your country. If you don't give it your country, the Wi-Fi will not work. You can set your locale if you wish. And then go ahead and click Save. And then say yes. And then it will wipe all of the data on the SD card. We're going to say yes. And then it will write. So while your SD card is flashing, I would recommend printing this print. I'll leave a link in the description, but you can see it right there. This works for the Raspberry Pi 02W frame. Now, I will say if you can't print one of these because you don't have a 3D printer yet, that's totally fine. What you can do is cover the back with some electrical tape so you don't short anything out. Just be careful with that. But if you're looking for a frame, you can print this out. Okay, let's talk about the Raspberry Pi and soldering it. Prusa has their own guide for doing this. It's actually really easy, although it may seem overwhelming. You don't have to do this. You can just run it using the cable, but I find having it streamlined is way better and not nearly as hard as you may think. So you're going to take this. You'll find this is a Raspberry Pi 0. You can use the 2W just fine. Use the 2W because it's going to be better for your Klipper install. So find one of those, buy it. Link in the description to get one of these. That's the right one. And then you're going to want this, a 2x20 strip dual male header with 18 millimeter pins. Now you want it to have 18, and I've seen 19. 18 is hard to find, but 19 seems pretty common on Amazon. You'll want to buy one of these headers. And then there's a frame we talked about, but for the 2W. And it's really easy. You want to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows. And then you're just going to use pliers and pull those pins out everywhere except where they're supposed to go. So it ends up looking like this on the board. There you go. It looks confusing at first. It's really not that hard. Even if you've get a $15 soldering gun, you should be able to do this pretty easily. Hopefully, most of the people here can solder. If you can, I would look up some guides on that, but it's really not too hard, and it really cleans up your install. You're also going to cut these little tabs that will open up the side of your MK3S to install this. Okay, once your board is soldered, we can start playing around with this. For now, we're actually going to use the Raspberry Pi outside of the case while we flash the firmware. So we're going to put in the SD card that we just flashed, and we need to connect it to the serial port on the printer using our cable. So we'll plug it into the OTG cable for the Raspberry Pi and plug it into this slot here. And then put the other end of that USB cable into the MK3. And then we just need to power this, which will turn it on and then let us access it from a web interface using the host name that we gave it when we flashed the SD card. So I'm using a power bank to power this up. I'll just plug it in here, and you'll know that it's on because of the green light that starts flashing right here. And now we can go to our browser and connect to it from the web interface. Okay, so now we should be able to access it over the network, which I was able to using that host name in a browser. You can see behind there, but it can't talk to the printer yet. It's just talking to the Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to SSH using the username and password. So I will connect to SSH. My username was pi at ava11.local, and it's going to ask for the SSH certificate. And then I type in my password. Use your password and username and credentials all there. And then we're going to change the directory to Klipper. Make sure you add your slashes. And now what we're going to do is configure how the Klipper firmware is set up. So this brings you into a menu, and this is critical for making it work with the Raspberry Pi on those pins. So you're going to hit space on extra low level, and you're going to change it from UART0 to UART1. This is key. That's what makes it work through the Raspberry Pi pins rather than through the USB. So if you want to use the USB, do UART0, but to connect through the pins and have it all integrated, use UART1. Save this configuration, and now we're ready to flash the firmware. So now our printer's on, we have it connected via the USB cable. We need to know what the name of it is. So if we type that command ls/dev/serial/by-id, that gets us this string. You can copy that, select it, and hit Control-C. And now we are going to stop Klipper so we can start the flash. So we do sudo service Klipper stop, enter our password. That stops the Klipper service. Now here's where we flash the MK3S's board. And again, it's connected, it's on, and we're going to type in this string. So you can either type it all the way out, but I copied it, so I'm just going to paste it. So make flash device, flash_device equals. We hit enter, and now you can see it's starting to compile the Klipper firmware to send over that USB cable. That's what it's doing right here. And now it's made the file, and it's going to now send that file over the USB. There we go. You can see it's writing, and you will see the printer start to show something as well. And then it verifies that it flashed correctly. And done. Okay, now that our printer is flashed, we can install the Raspberry Pi 02W. There's the pins, the little case, and we're going to put it into these pins. Turn off your printer first, obviously, but now that your printer is flashed, you have the Klipper SD card, you can put this Raspberry Pi Zero directly into the machine, and it's a little trouble getting those pins light up. Once you do, you're good to go. Okay, so like I say, if you're connected through your web interface, you can go to, I'm going to ava10.local because I changed some things. Anyways, my name's ava10. Use your name. But once you go there, you're in the Klipper interface. But we need to do some things first. So we're going to click on the machine section here. Now, let's look at this guide here that I mentioned. Charmin Ultra, here's the URL to get here that has all written instructions for this. Although this video is relying on information here, but I'm doing it slightly different than maybe what he says here, based on my own experience and what I'm trying to accomplish with the Raspberry Pi 2W installed on the side. So what we really need here are the configuration files. So the configuration files right here are these files. So what you want to do is download all of these files and put them in a folder. So I have all of mine here. And the first thing we're going to do is also make a copy of the printer.template.cfg. And so I just copied and pasted that, and then you're going to rename that printer.cfg. So you've got all your files here, and you're going to upload them in the Klipper web interface. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So you're here, you're going to click on machine. I've already uploaded these, but what you'll do is click upload file. I have all of mine in this config file, and you can actually select them all at once. You can highlight them all and click open, and that will upload all of those and put them into place on your Raspberry Pi like they should be. Okay, so let's talk some basic theory because you may not have ever seen Klipper before. Your main file that you change all of your settings with is the printer.cfg. So we're going to click into here, and we're just going to go through everything that's in this file and talk it through. If you need to add something, you will add it. Okay, so first thing, as we go down, let's just look. You can see they have set this, Charmin Ultra has created this and has copied over the velocity settings and the maximum acceleration settings for the MK3.5 that out of the default values that are in the factory profile. That makes Klipper adhere to the same limits as the PrusaSlicer limits would be for an MK3.5, which is what we want. Okay, now let's talk about the Z offset. So this is going to depend on your machine specifically. So for example, if you adjusted your Z offset on your MK3S before, you would have maybe a negative value usually. Mine was negative 1.825. And so here you leave it as a positive. So whatever your negative Z offset was in the Prusa firmware, in this config file, make it positive. And it's going to, for me, it was 1.825. You can also, if you're changing bed sheets, here's where you would come change it. So you would use a hashtag, which is a comment out. So you'd comment that out. And then if you're going to your satin bed sheet, you would remove the hashtag, and you're basically changing your offset value while retaining it for a different sheet in here. A little clunky, but this is what this section does. So I'm going to set that back to normal. In this section, the MCU, yours is going to, by default, when you upload that file, it's going to look like this. You need to change it to the serial port because we are using the internal Raspberry Pi serial port. So what you want to do is remove the comment there, comment it up here, and that's going to make sure it communicates over the serial port. Okay, so we're going to keep scrolling to relevant items. Pressure advance. So you may have a pressure advance that's commented out right now. I will tell you that 90% of the time your pressure advance value is going to be 0.04 or 0.05. So we can skip all the tuning and just get you a value that's going to get you going. Yes, go do that tuning later, but for now, put a pressure advance of 0.05. Thank me later. Input shaper. You want to probably tune this yourself for best results, but I'm going to give you the stock values that Prusa uses for their machines anyways, and you're going to drop this in. The x-axis MZV50, y-axis MZV40. Drop that in. I did test prints that we'll look at. They looked great, and I even ran the machine as fast as I could, and the test prints still look great, no ringing with these input shaper values, even though they're not specifically highly tuned. Like, yes, go do that later, get an accelerometer later, refer to this guide on how to do that. But if you want some baseline input shaper values, here they are for an MK3S Plus, okay? Let's move on. We don't have to touch anything else. That's it. So once you've done that, and especially changing this over to serial, now you're going to click Save and Restart. And once you do that and go back to the dashboard, what you'll see is that your printer should now be ready. It's talking over the Raspberry Pi port. You've now got your extruder temperature, your heater temperature, and we're in good shape here. Your machine should be working at this point. But we still have a couple of things to do. Like I said, you want to get the PID values correct here. So what we're going to do is go to this page, and this has the PID command. So we're going to come, and you can drop commands in this console in Klipper. So I'm going to drop this command for the extruder. Again, your printer is on. Your printer head should not be touching the build plate. It should be kind of just floating there, and we'll run this. And what you'll see is the extruder is now going to heat up to 170 degrees and do the PID calibration. Okay, so you can see that it basically heated up the nozzle, went up and down, and found its PID values. So what you want to do is we want to save those PID values. So this, if we run this command, save config, this is going to write it to the printer.cfg all by itself. And it reboots the printer and brings it back up. So that's normal for it to have done that. And we have just done the extruder, but now we have to get the PID value for the heater bed as well. So let's go over to here, and we're going to grab this command. And we're going to run that. And now the heater bed is going to heat up to 60 degrees, heat up, cool down to get its PID value. Okay, so that does take a few minutes, but we now can see it then spat out the PID value for the heater bed, and we're going to type save underscore config and hit enter. And that resets it, saves the value, and we now should have a fully ready to go printer that's ready to print. But what's good is a printer without print profiles. Okay, let's learn how to set up a print profile specifically for this configuration of printer in PrusaSlicer, where you're probably used to slicing anyways if you have an MK3. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so you're going to open PrusaSlicer. And one of the things you're going to want to do is add the MK3.5. You're going to do this by going to your printer list and clicking Add a Physical Printer. And clicking Add a Preset. And clicking Add Remove Presets. This is going to open the wizard. If it wants to update, go ahead and update. Then we're going to add a Prusa Research printer. So I already have a couple printers that I use in different configurations. So you can keep them selected, but we want to go down to the MK3.5 and do the original 3.5.4 millimeter nozzle. This is going to get us our preset. We can click finish there, and now we have the printer available as one of the settings. So we are going to edit this preset though for Klipper, because you can't just give it a regular MK3.5 preset. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to save the preset and we're going to rename it. So I'm going to call it MK3.5 Klipper. Save that, and now we have a new printer available. We're going to detach it from the system preset. We're going to do this because we're going to make modifications that we don't want to be messed with later. All right, we're going to go to General, and then we're going to change it from Marlin 2 to Klipper. The other thing we're going to change here is we're going to turn off that it supports binary G-code, because we want regular G-code. Under custom G-code limits, we are going to delete everything here in every single box. And there's 2 boxes below this that you need to change as well, which when I was recording this, I forgot to do. Be sure to delete every G-code in every single box. We're going to deselect emit temperature commands as well. And all of these instructions are also in the Charmin Ultra GitHub page. And we're going to drop these commands as the G-code for start and end. At this point, we can click Save Preset, and this will save all of our changes. All right, so now you have a template for your printer, but we need to add templates for print settings. So say you wanted to do a 0.15 PLA one. So you're going to go back to the MK3.5, and let's find, here's a 0.15 speed setting. Let's go to the settings here. We are going to detach this from the system preset, and we're going to call this Klipper and we're going to save that. And you can see we now have this here. One of the adjustments that you need to do is going in here to advanced, and where it says arc fitting, you want to disable that. That's not compatible with Klipper, so we're going to disable that, and we're going to save that preset. And now if we change back to our Klipper printer, you can see that it's now one of the available print profiles. So just do that for every one you want to use. First find it over here, and then in the original 3.5, and then do it over here. But anyways, now for the fun part, let's see what we will get for our benchy speed. First of all, let's get, what was the baseline? What was the original, if we go to a 0.2 millimeter speed profile for a benchy and slice that for a regular MK3S. You're looking at 1 hour and 18 minutes on that. But now, if we go to our Klipper, and I'm going to change it to the 0.22 PLA speed profile and slice, we're now able to do that in 52 minutes. So we gained 30 minutes. So now how do we start printing? Well, it's as easy as exporting your G code. We'll give this warning, which is fine. And then we're going to go back to our Klipper window. So you're at your URL, and you can quickly upload and print by selecting that, and you could select your G code at that point. Another option is to go over to the G code files, and in this directory you can click upload and give it your Benchy file. And there it is right there. And to start printing, you just click on it and click print. Let's look at what the interface looks like on the machine itself, because there's a couple of interesting, it will act slightly differently than a stock Prusa configuration. So let me show you how that works. Okay, so when Klipper's installed, you do retain full control of your controls and display here. You can see your temperatures, your fan, your time. You can see that it says ready. Let's look at the menu because it is different. We'll click in, and you have SD card, control, temperature, filament, and setup. So the filament's actually interesting. If you do put filament in here, it will automatically heat up the extruder and then push it through. But you can override some of these things by clicking into filament, and then you can set a temperature. EX0 is extruder 0, which is your only extruder. And then you can load your filament fast or slow. I would use slow. And you can also unload, and you can also set your feed rate. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, you can control your temperature, and there's some cool down, heat for ABS or PLA, or set manual. So pretty easy. Under control, you've got home all, which if we click that, it's just going to home the machine. Pretty basic. You can home your Z, your X and Y, do a bed mesh, turn your steppers off, set your fan speed, and move certain degrees. So you may be thinking, how the crap do I print? Well, you go to your SD card, and the file that we just uploaded is sitting right here. And so then you may tap this button and think, oh, I'll print it. Click, and it does nothing. So it looks kind of weird. You're like, what the heck? But if you go up to the double dot and then go back into SD card, you now have the start printing option, which I don't know if there's a shortcut to do this, but this is how I've been doing it. And now if we click start printing, it will start printing. So that's how you can copy files to it and start it from the machine once the file is in place. And you can see we're heating our bed. We're heating our extruder, and you have your percent of print complete. And I believe this may switch between remaining time and time it has been printing. So you still get a decent screen that works great. You have Wi-Fi access through that Raspberry Pi. You don't need to use the SD card anymore. And you get all the benefits of Klipper and can do configurations. So pretty neat. Okay, so these are test prints that I did using this configuration. So we're now printing not at MK3S Plus speeds, we're printing at MK3.5 speeds with input shaper using those baseline settings that I said. So this is an MK3S Plus with Klipper, and you can see that we have some nice print quality going on here. And here's some test prints that I did. This was at 100% speed, because in Klipper you can actually, the baseline is the 100%. You can actually artificially increase print speed just like you could on your Prusa before. So this is the baseline with 4,000 acceleration and 100% print speed for this test print. And what this does is checks for ringing. Now, I do not see any ringing whatsoever. This is at the default speed. So I don't see any ringing on the 45. Here's test Y. The Y-axis looks good. The X-axis looks good. Again, I'm not seeing any sign of ringing whatsoever at 100% speed. I then decided, well, let's push it. I printed it at 200% print speed. And you can see this also doesn't have any ringing. This is a ringing test. You can see that the T got a little bit, just slightly, has a little bit of a difference between the two. You can see that the T is not quite as clear. It kind of smeared there at the left-hand side. So I said, well, let's keep pushing it. Let's do 250% print speed and 7,000 on the acceleration, because you can change that in your printer.cfg file. So I did that, and you can see that, again, with those input shaper values that I have, still looks really good. Almost no ringing visible. So again, like, you're best off getting a sensor, or doing a print test to find your input shaper values, but it's not necessary to get really good results. Okay, so that's the video. Hopefully you're able to turn your MK3S, MK3S Plus into a Klipper input shaper speed demon that's roughly on par with an MK3.5, and hopefully you didn't spend more than maybe even $175 like I did. So there's extreme value to be had here. And anyways, if you like this video, get subscribed up, because I'll be doing some more modifications to my printers. I have a whole print farm with the Core 1, the MK4S, the Prusa XL, some Bamboo Labs, and I've done, my next video on 3D printers is going to be taking the MK3S Plus and upgrading it with some extrusion and some bamboo hot ends. Isn't that a disaster and blasphemy? But upgrading the hot end in the MK3S Plus to a bamboo style hot end. So get subscribed up, and we'll see you on the next video.